Go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey, thanks for stopping by Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. As always, make sure you are subscribed, that you hit the like button on the video, that you're sharing this. And if you're not subscribed, or if you are subscribed, share it with friends. Hit the bell icon down there so you can make sure you're getting notifications when the content comes out. Tell people about this if you like the content. And share, because I'm a glory hound and I need all the views that I can get on a Friday night after a long week of work. Merchandise, y'all aware? See, the shelf's a little emptier. I had a few people buy some things this week, right? So make sure you're buying coffee, you know, especially if you're in Minnesota, you're all a bunch of coffee drinkers. Got some nice mugs. See, mugs. Part of the reason I want you guys to buy is because we are doing a fundraiser for 22 to 0 organization that is going to help us prevent veteran suicide. 22 veterans a day or more take their lives. Not all of them are combat vets, but they've all suffered something. And so when you buy, a portion of the proceeds are going to go to 22 to 0. And Juan over at Right America Media, he produces Veteran Nation with Mike, Skipper, Arthur, and I. He's going to match that up to $100. And Kim and his wife, they make my merchandise. They are going to match that as well up to $100. And that's Second Generation Creations. They make my stuff for me here. I'm working on finding somebody that can mass produce my hat for me. If you like that, we're going to be doing that. I know it's summer, but you know, it's Minnesota. So we could go from 90 degrees one day and then the next day we could be down to 40, which is still summer weather for Minnesota. I'm really excited tonight to have Bull Johnson. I think his proper name is Travis, right? We're going to have Bull on. He's going to come in and he's going to tell us why he's the best candidate for the 7th District here in Minnesota. He's running for the House of Representatives at the federal level, and he's running as an independent because, in his own words, he wants to be consistent. He doesn't want to be about a party. He doesn't want it to be an issue about his Democrat affiliations or Republican affiliations or Libertarian affiliations, and we're going to talk about that a little bit too. But he's running as an independent because he wants people to understand that he is going to be beholden to them. So, once again, listen to him. If you have questions, share them down below in the chat, and I will ask them to him. As always, super chats get the first dib on questions and smart aleck comments. And the better the super chat, the more likely I am to laugh at your smart aleck comments. So, without any further ado, everybody say hello to Travis Bull Johnson. Thank you for doing this.
Hey, thank you for having me, sir.
Don't call me sir.
It's habit.
I worked for a living.
I noticed you said it worked.
Worked for a living. Well, when I was in the military, anything was worked. So
yeah, true.
We got a couple of people watching us. Neither one of them in Minnesota right now.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Yeah, right. Well, you're pretty close to North Dakota anyway, right?
Yes, I am. I'm 35 minutes away.
And not too far away from Canada.
Yeah, a couple of hours or so.
Which is still closer to Canada than to me.
True enough.
So one of our viewers for sure is from North Dakota, and the other one is from Canada, and that's Kent, who's going to be on here in a couple of weeks. He's our Canadian. He's our annoying little brother to the north. So Travis, you're. Oh, hey, we got Gregory from Minnesota. There we go. Hi, Greg. Hey, so you're running for the seventh Congressional District office. You're running against a Democrat, and you're running against a Republican, and you're running as an independent with Libertarian leanings. And I caught you. I caught you with your non-Libertarian hat on the other day when you came on Veteran Nation. So tell us a little bit about what made you decide to run as an independent in what is traditionally how should we say, a traditionally rural conservative mindset, which tends to lean towards Republicans.
Right. Well, first of all, right now we do not have a Democrat running. Right as of today, it's still just me and the incumbent Michelle Fishbach. When I started looking at the possibility of running, what really I wanted to run because the two parties were tearing us apart. It's always a we have to win, you have to lose mindset, and that's not how the country is supposed to work. And I'll go a little bit more into that shortly. So at that point, I'm like, well, I thought about running as a Libertarian. But then when you start thinking about it, you start looking around the Libertarian Party, we have a lot of fringe elements. We have a lot of polarizing people within the Libertarian Party. And I didn't want to be in a situation where I was having to defend them or defending policy planks that I may or may not agree with. I wanted this to be about me as a candidate. I wanted you to look at me as a candidate and say, yes, I like this or I like that. I didn't want a party to be a distraction. Because truth of the matter is, and I was watching your show with Buck a little bit earlier when you talk about third party.
Thanks for watching. I appreciate that. Drive my views up. Share it out there. Buck's a great guy.
Yeah, and their inability of the third party to really to do much at that point. But I think part of that is the fact that it just third parties have this thing of they don't go into a situation thinking they're going to win. Very rarely. So when they go in, they don't go in with the mindset of, hey, if I start to become a risk to the two-party system, to the duopoly, how are they going to counter me? And when I looked at it, I'm like, they're going to run ads. They're going to put Vermin Supreme up on there with his boot on his head going, this is a Libertarian. Is this what you want representing Western Minnesota? And without the money, without all that stuff to counter it, that's what people are going to see and believe. So I wanted to take that weapon out of their toolbox. I want them to have to come after me for my policies, my policy ideas, instead of branding me, oh, he's just a Libertarian, they're out in left field or right field or whatever your view is. At the same time, I mean, I wanted to go against the two-party system. And I grew up as a conservative. But I look at the Republican Party today, and I look at both parties, and there is no conservative party. I mean, I posted something the other day saying the two most endangered animals in the world is a small government Republican and an anti-war Democrat. I mean, you don't really have them. And
boy, ain't that the truth?
We look at everything going on right now through the state of Minnesota. We look at everything going on with the MNGOP. If I had decided to run as a conservative on the GOP ticket, there is no way I would have gotten a fair shake. I mean, they're not even giving guys running for state representative a fair shake. You think they're going to really allow a threat to a sitting GOP congressperson? And let's be honest. I mean, with my views, they're mostly libertarian. There are things that will have people from the left will go for. I mean, your blue dog Democrats. And if I'm running as strictly a Republican and primarying, a lot of these people are just going to go for the incumbent regardless.
Well, but let's, you learned a little bit about me over the days.
Yep.
You said you were watching my conversation with Buck.
Yep.
And Buck pointed out that he still has a lot of core libertarian values, but he also has a massive amount of respect for guys like the Pauls, but Ron Paul in particular.
Right.
And Ron Paul ran as a libertarian on a Republican ticket because he knew it was the best way for him to get a seat.
Right. Now,
so there's some strategy there. So,
and I agree, but I mean, look at Minnesota. We were Ron Paul country. I mean, 12 out of 13 delegates for the National GOP convention were for Ron Paul. Look at our GOP representatives. Is there one liberty-based representative in the state of Minnesota today? Not a one. They're all established.
Not sitting in the House right now. No.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is the GOP has went away from everything Ron Paul stood for,
right.
And part of the reason is there's no money in it. There's no money in small government. There's nothing to drive the campaign arm in ending the drug war, in being anti-war. I mean, they need to get their donations from the Raytheons, the defense contractors, the contractors who will make deals with the U.S. government as contractors. I mean, there is no small government GOP anymore. It's a shame to say, but part of my thought process on coming from a outside, because it is very much strategic. This is a district where President Trump took 65% of the vote. That was before redistricting. After redistricting, when you re-add it up, I think it was 68 to 70%. That makes it basically mathematically impossible for a Democrat to win this district. Because one of the main things the GOP
which is why they're not running in your district.
Right. Which is one of the main tools the GOP uses to keep third parties or independents from being competitive. If they vote, you vote for the independent, or you vote for the libertarian or whatever else, you're going to help a Democrat get in. Well, guess what? That's not really an option anymore. The Democrat is not going to win this district. So that tool comes out of their toolbox. And now people can go into to vote and go, am I going to vote for I'm going to vote for the real conservative in the race, not necessarily the GOP.
Right. And I think it's really important, Bull, that people understand that when someone says I align with libertarian values, they're not rejecting conservatism. Because by and large, and I don't know if you ever listened to Tom Woods, by and large, libertarians are conservative.
Yep. Constitutional conservatives.
Constitutional conservatives, absolutely. And there are a few issues where libertarians and conservatives disagree.
Yep.
But not on a lot. For the most part, they kind of run. And there again, when I say conservative, I'm referring to paleo conservatives, which and as I warned you when I reached out to you. The funny story, I reached out to Bull and I said, hey, I'd love to have you on my show sometime. Like I'm some sort of big deal. and then I said, I should probably introduce myself so that you know who I am. And Buck Bull very ominously said, oh, I've been watching you. And then I found out he's a finance vet for the Army. And then that was really creepy. So, but I did tell, I told you when we first started to communicate, because we've been friends on Facebook for a little bit, and we've been at a couple of events together, and I've never imposed myself into your sphere of influence in those places. But I told you I'm a paleo, and I find myself having more in common with more libertarians than I do with what tends to pass for conservatism here in Minnesota or even across the United States. So people have to understand this, that conservatives and libertarians are great allies. They're great allies. And those places where we have some differences tend to be things like the drug war.
Yeah.
And really, paleo conservatives are actually going to be great allies for the libertarians on things like the drug war and the welfare state, because our approach to those things is quite the same. And I think a lot of that comes down to, in Bull, you can correct me if that's wrong, but it comes down to people's misunderstanding of what libertarianism is, mostly because of the way libertarians have painted themselves up until here we go, you ready? I'm going to bring it up. Until the resurgence of the Mises caucus within libertarianism, which, if you're not familiar, you need to go and look up Mises and look up his writings and understand what the Mises caucus is. It's conservatism, but it's not Keynesian economics to start with. And that's what really kind of makes a difference in the Mises caucus versus where the Libertarian Party was before, especially under Joe Jorgensen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I mean,
I'm not a Joe fan. So
yeah, I mean, if you look at like the Tom Masseys, you look at the Jeremy Munson running for Congressional District 1, there is not a lot of sunlight between my views and theirs. I personally, and I teased Jeremy about this, because I asked him at one point if he wanted my endorsement. He's like, no, please don't. Please don't. And but I
think he would say the same thing to me, to be honest with you. And,
yeah,
and I have rubbed elbows with Jeremy a few times, but I'm pretty sure he would like to not be anywhere near me for some of this.
But I look at Jeremy, and he's somebody I'm really hoping wins, because when I win and he wins, I've got somebody who I can work with.
Exactly.
So I'm not on an island by myself.
And Jen Carnahan would say we need to get rid of the Bull Johnsons of the world.
Oh, definitely, which I think is just a huge plus for me.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, she's just a piece of work.
I'm gonna break my Derek. If you want to ask another question, you got a super chat. I'm kidding. Well, kind of kidding. Derek, I don't know if you know Derek, but Derek seems to be aware of your concern with Michelle. Hey, Travis, were you able to get clarification on Fishbach's voting record on veterans issues? I don't really know. Is there anything to clarify there?
Well, you might want to sit down for this one, because this is you're all get a kick out of.
If you're not sitting down on a Friday night watching this, we have another problem. So Michelle Fishbach voted against 3 bills that were to give veterans additional benefits, or to ensure they knew about the benefits they had already earned, and she voted against them. And I had a chance to speak with her campaign manager director yesterday, and their response was, no, Michelle's actually very pro-veteran. Those votes were just a trick by Nancy Pelosi that you fell for. Huh? Wait. No. You don't get to throw that out there and not say it again. Michelle's campaign manager said that Michelle's votes were tricks by Nancy Pelosi.
Yep. That was tricked by Nancy Pelosi. Does that
make a lick of sense?
It doesn't. And then she followed up with saying that, well, the Senate is working on a all-encompassing bill that they will send over that we'll approve. Like, see, that's where your issue is. We don't want omnibus type bills. We want single issue bills, and that's
omnibus bill. Ominous. Omnibus and ominous. They're kind of the same, aren't they? I mean,
yep.
But omnibus bills aren't even constitutional.
No,
they shouldn't even be existing in the first place.
And that was my point of view. I mean, she told this and you know, I like Naran. I mean, I would probably be pretty awkward too if I was in a position I had to defend Michelle Fishbach's voting record. But I mean, when it comes to veterans issues,
I did it again.
Well, considering how you like Bach, I'm feeling honored.
I'm going to call you Travis. That's what it is. It's because it's so darn close. So, Travis, how do you really feel about?
You know what? I mean, it's one of those things that I think Michelle's a good person. I mean, I really do. I just don't think we look at things through the same world lens. And I think she's to the point now, because she's been in politics her entire career. That's
Yep,
all
I was
she's
just
ever
going to say
done.
she's been there for a while.
That's all she knows. And I think she's gotten to the point now where it's more important to make sure the Democrats don't get a win than helping the constituents. I mean, I think that's what a lot of the both parties are. Is they're
But that's
more
a Republican.
concerned.
But that's a Republican strategy, Bull.
Yeah.
All the time.
And
That's
I
a
know,
Republican strategy.
but-
Oh, we're here to make sure the Democrats don't win. And
And you know what? If the Democrats get credit and it helps our veterans, I'm okay with that. I mean, because it's about the veterans. It's about the people. I mean, but that's
So-
all the reason why I had to run as an independent.
I've got somebody here that says, "Hey, I'm from Minnesota." This was earlier. I'm from Minnesota. This is Jake D. I don't know. Is this the Jake D that I might be thinking of?
That if it's the Jake D that I know of, he's actually running for State House in 9A as a Libertarian, which is the Otter Tail Fergus Falls area.
So it's not the Jake D that I might be aware of.
Possibly not. He looks tanker. He said tanker, so I'm thinking it's Jake Dahl.
If Jake, if you're still watching, let us know if that's you.
And then if you look at here, your comments from Brian Lambert. Brian Lambert is kind of Spike Cohen's right-hand man.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Well, I'm honored to have Spike Cohen's right-hand man here watching.
He does all of Spike's travel arrangements and a lot of his scheduling and so forth.
Where's Brian from?
He is out in Tennessee, I believe.
Well, Brian, I'm honored to have you here. If you got connections, I'd gladly have Spike on.
That's
Better
kind of
than
why I
having
dropped
Travis
that comment.
on. Okay.
I'm gonna get Buddhist for Spike already. God dang it.
Oh, so since we have got Brian up there, being the independent in Congress means that Bull has the freedom to vote for what is right and what he believes in, as opposed to being dragged into a party line. See, and this is the thing that I agree with 100%, because here's what we hear so often. And let's just look at the state of Minnesota, right? You're running for a federal office,
Right.
the federal state. But what we hear in Minnesota so often is we got to start meeting people in the middle. I had a conversation with the guy on Twitter earlier today. It started last night, and he said there are a lot of really good Republicans running for office, and I asked him for clarification on what he meant by really good candidates. And the first thing that he said, and somebody got mad at me. They said, "You're going to roast him no matter what." And I'm like, if you get to know me, I'm not into roasting people. I really want to have conversations with people, and I really want to have conversations with people I disagree with. So I asked him, "What do you mean by really good Republican candidates for office?" And the first thing that he said was, "Well, they're well known and they're able to raise money and people respect them," which is really just a variance of, well, people get along with them and they can raise money, which means they can run for office.
Yeah.
And
nothing about them actually having the values.
And that's what I said. So, and I said, for clarification's sake, so nothing about being constitutionalist, being strict interpreters of the Constitution or anything like that. And that's when the person made the comment about me roasting him. And I'm like, no, these are things that we have to talk about. We have to talk about these concerns, about these issues, because for so long in the state of Minnesota, what we've seen, whether it be at the state level or at the federal level, Republicans have been about compromise over and over. And I tend to vote the Republican line just because I'm darn sure not voting for a Democrat. Not in this state.
Yeah.
But over and over and over again, they're about compromise. It's about meeting in the middle. And the problem is that the Democrats don't compromise. The Democrats have no interest in coming to the center.
Mhm.
They expect you to follow them, and they want you to go where they're going.
Mhm.
End of story. That's what they want. And what that does is it forces the compromising Republicans to move closer to the center and ultimately further to the left. And their base is left behind. People like me are left behind. I'm not a alt-righter. I'm a conservative. I'm a paleo-conservative. I'm a strict constitutionalist. I'm an anti-interventionist. I'm an anti, big government person.
Mhm.
And compromise always hurts me
Yeah.
at the expense or at my expense for these people getting reelected. And
No,
that's exactly what Fishbach has done.
and compromising in that way, I don't think makes sense. Now, there are going to have to be some compromises. For an example, as somebody with a libertarian background, I am all for ending the drug war. I am also heavily against taxes. But if it takes getting to legalize marijuana, it requires taxing it. I'm willing to make that compromise because it's gonna be more towards people having their liberties of being able to choose whether they want to smoke it or not. That's kind of compromise I think we may have to make. But the other thing I look at is, and this is why I'm such a big proponent of single item bills, is there's some things we can agree with. If it's veterans care, okay, there doesn't need to be compromise there. We can come up and say, yeah, we both agree on this. We need to take care of our veterans. Let's work towards that on single item issues.
Right.
Where compromise comes place is those nasty omnibus bills we keep talking about, where they can fit in all the pork they want into, they can hide it, and nobody can vote against it because they're going to pick one thing out of that bill that goes against somebody and beat them over the head with it on the next election, which is kind of what Noran was trying to tell me was happening, but it was single issue bills. So,
well, the problem that has arisen is that the elected servants have forgotten that they're not there to be there permanently. They're there as representatives, whether it's the House or the Senate.
And
they have. Go ahead.
Here's one that you'll probably enjoy too. I mean, I have reached out and because during this race I've had 3 Democratic opponents. They're all gone now, but I've reached out to each of them. I've talked to each of them, and even though we have different ideological differences in views, we all like each other and get along just fine. Now, I've offered before to meet with Michelle, and I reemphasized that to Noran last night. Hey, I'd still like to see Michelle and talk to her as candidate to candidate at one point so we get to know each other. And the response I got was that she's not going to be available because she's doing what they paid her, what we sent her to DC to do. Visit Ukraine last week. Run around with the Western Caucus this week to Texas. So she's not available to talk to her constituents. And I'm just like,
why is she going to the Ukraine in the first place? That's what
I
like.
Well, and it was Eastern Europe. It wasn't Ukraine itself. But that was my point. Is she's not on any committees for oversight of that. So I mean, why is she?
Well, it's virtue signaling.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It was because Kevin McCarthy went. Okay, that's. But I mean,
well, and I'll just say this, like Michelle, Bull probably doesn't want to hear this, but Michelle, I'll give you a platform to come on here and tell me why you're a better candidate than Bull. I'll tell you that right now.
She would. I would love her to. I mean, so
I would love, like anybody knows Michelle, like come on here to my show. I will make the time to have you on here and tell me why you're a better candidate than Bull. But I'm going to tell you right now, I am going to hold your freaking feet to the fire about how you abandoned the veterans. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Especially when we've got the president of the United States right now, Biden.
You're right the first time.
Posting about how our duty to veterans is a sacred commitment. This was yesterday, a sacred commitment. And we're doing this to get veterans employed and getting them jobs and yada, yada, yada. The veterans don't need jobs. And don't get me wrong, they do. They need a job. But the job's not going to save the life of a veteran who's suicidal.
Yep.
The vast majority of vets that are committing suicide right now are not committing suicide because they don't have jobs and money. They're committing suicide because they're not getting the care they need. And Michelle, you voted against every one of those because Pelosi tricked us. I don't get that. So, Michelle Fishbach, this is your challenge right now to come on my program, come on my show, and tell me what makes you a better candidate than Bull on this. Especially on this issue. I know what the answer is going to be.
I really wish you would. I really wish you would, because I want this to be about issues. Exactly. I don't want it to be personal. there's no
Precisely.
chance. There's no chance that she's going to debate me. That's not going to happen. She's going to say she's too busy. She's too busy.
Well, you know, you're going to Eastern Europe. That takes a lot of time.
And I mean, the fact that I'm getting as much attention from her team as I am already is actually rather.
They want you to drop out of the race.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying
That's
they
what
know I'm
or
not.
we'll give you what you want. Just drop out of the race.
The fact that they're paying any attention to me at all shows how scared they are. Who in the GOP ever pays any attention to an independent or a libertarian? The fact that they're feeling that they have to address me, they have to send somebody to my events. That tells you that they're not real comfortable and confident in their ability. I mean, they do not want to go against me head to head. I will say that they do not want this general election to come, and it's just me and her.
Brian said both parties would then be forced to cater to his middle vote, which oftentimes be very important on close partisan lines. I don't disagree with that, but who am I to question Spike Cohen's right hand man?
Let's put it this way: would you like to have your personal Joe Manchin representing Minnesota?
There you go. So I think it's less though about them having to cater, because I don't think you want to be catered to.
No.
And I understand what he was saying, but it's really not about being catered to.
It allows me to leverage that power to help Western Minnesota, to help shrink the government. Hey, you know what? You want my help on this? This is what it's going to cost. You need to give me a vote on reducing or eliminating this agency, or you need to. I mean,
can we start with the Department of Education, please?
I believe you had my issues up earlier, and that is actually one of my issues on there, is to eliminate the Department of Education.
Well,
that is on my platform.
But we'll just show people. and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I am my own producer, my own host, and my own technical. So if it seems a little sloppy, it's because it is.
My feeling goes out to you, because I had to do the same thing this past week.
So there we are. There we have some of his issues, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way,
right on the top right,
Taker Man 220. It is Jake Dahl. So, Jake, if you'd like to come on and talk about why you're running for office and let people know what you're doing, you just send me a message on Facebook if you're on Facebook, TC Pearson, and reach out to me, and we'll get you on. We'll talk about it. I'm trying to platform people, so I have a soft spot for libertarians, even if you guys are a little crazy.
We have to be to take on the odds that we take on.
Touché, sir. So my Canadian friend is Kent. Like I said, he'll be on here in a couple of weeks. He says that's why regional elected politics should pay more than national politics. I agree with that. In fact, quite frankly, I think that we should here in the United States, the Republic of the United States of America, we should actually be working to eliminate pay for members of the House and the Senate. And Bolt's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Oh no, I've lived in Washington D.C., so I know how much a house apartment there cost. So,
but I don't think
it would make it impossible for me to run.
I don't think that they should be there for that long. I think it should be, we're going to have a vote next week. We're going to provide some living quarters for everybody for about a week's time, and then go home and go back to actually having a real job.
Is there really a need to meet in person with the way technology is right now?
Pretty much, unless it's going to be a roll call vote where you have to be on the floor, and then you just do it. Too many of these politicians, left and right, Republican and Democrat, have made a career. Joe Biden hasn't had a job, I believe, if I remember correctly. I don't think Joe Biden's actually had a real job since like 1974 or 75, something like that. He's not worked in the private sector for that long.
Look at my opponent. She's got a law degree, but I don't think she's ever actually practiced law.
Has she ever passed the bar?
That I don't know. I can't tell you that one.
And the other question is Bull, have you ever passed a bar?
Very few of them. I usually have to inspect them.
There you go. That's like, oh, wonderful. Brian agrees with you. He says you nailed it.
I've held up a few bars, though. Or held them down, should I say.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. He says you nailed it. So here's the issue is like, what you see again is that, libertarians and traditional conservatives are pretty much lockstep on a lot of things.
I think we're the original constitutional conservatives.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I think the variance between paleo conservatism and classical liberalism, Adam Smith type, liberalism or libertarianism is probably very, very narrow.
Yeah.
Like, I keep having this conversation with a good friend of mine, see him on a daily basis, and he's like, well, I have issues with libertarians. We got to have the government for some things, and I'm like, why? And of course, the argument comes up, and when he sees this, he'll rib me for it on Monday, for calling him out. But what about roads? And I'm like, why can't roads all be private? Why can't they all be private? Well, what if somebody decides they want to charge you $45 to drive down their section of the road? I'm like, so you pay the $45 or you find somebody else who's willing to build a road and let you drive down it for $2?
Look, where my issue is, especially with that, is toll roads on an interstate. We have already paid for those roads through our taxes, and then they want to charge us again for passing. And it's kind of like, what the...
Right. So we're gonna tax the crap out of you, and then we're also going to tax you to drive on the road that we already taxed you for. Yeah, 100%. And I think I think there's a little bit of I think there's some confusion, I think, with libertarianism. What is traditionally libertarianism versus the boogeyman of libertarianism, which is, like actual anarchy, like chaotic anarchy.
There we go. Chaotic anarchy compared to just
anarcho-capitalism or Republican, for lack of better terminology, Republican as in a Republican mindset, not the party, but Republican anarchy, which very much understands representation and the need for some structure and some organization. Yep. And I also think that there's a portion of libertarianism that appeals to a non-religious mindset. And I say that because what you see is a lot of people who have conservative leanings tend to be tend to be atheistic, tend to be drawn into libertarianism because at the forefront, most libertarian the red-pilled versus the blue-pilled, if you're going to use Dr. Woods's perspective, they tend to not push the religious fundamentals of their conservatism as much.
Well, and I think a lot of that is just a fact. Again, they are constitutional conservatives, so that whole separation of church and state thing is a big issue. But I do think it's very... What's that?
Finish that thought, because
I do think it's very important to, I believe it was John Adams, who said our Constitution is inferior, or it won't be enough for anybody, for a non-godly people.
It was Adams,
And my belief on that is there's a certain truth to that. I mean, not necessarily in the fact that it was meant in a religious point, but that in a moral point, that people, for our Constitution to work, people need to do the right thing on their own. They need to have a strong sense of what is right and wrong, and do it on their own, so that because the government's not going to be there to force them to. If that makes any sense to you.
Well, there again, you've gotten to know me a little bit. it's interesting, and I say this there as not as a gotcha, but it's interesting that you cited the separation of church and state,
Mhm.
which doesn't appear anywhere in the Constitution.
Right.
It's actually antithetical to the Constitution.
Mhm.
Thomas Jefferson, who penned those words, did not pen them in relation to the Constitution, but he penned them in relation to a fight between two different congregations of people
Right.
in Danbury, Connecticut. And in Danbury, it was the established, for lack of better terminology, the Episcopalians,
Mhm.
which were, basically the Church of England in the United States at the time, and who were singling out Baptist
Mhm.
in Danbury and using the power of the state. What a shock! to drive the Baptists out and make the Danbury Baptist illegal
Mhm. Right.
through the power of the state. And the Danbury Baptists, knowing that Jefferson was a deist, a clockmaker god kind of
Mhm.
person, reached out to him and said, "Well, what is the importance of the First Amendment
Mhm.
of our Constitution and the Bill of Rights?" And of course I'm paraphrasing, but his response was, "There has been a strict line of separation," and this is a letter. This is a private letter between Jefferson and Danbury and the Danbury Baptist group, saying there has been a strict a strict wall of separation built between the church and the state. And then he goes on to elaborate, wherein the church should not fear the state having any control over how it practices its religion. He's
Mhm.
never once, it was never once implied, stated, or meant to be understood that you're Christian. And I'm just going to push on this because, as we all know, you can be any other religious flavor outside of Christianity and will completely embrace your religious perspective influencing how you vote, what you believe, and what
Mhm.
you vote and what you enforce on the people around you. But when you bring Christianity in the mix, leave your religion at home. And that was never the
No.
intent of Jefferson, ever,
Well,
when
again, the
he
whole
penned those words.
yeah.
And that's why it didn't show up in the Constitution, because in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, in the Declaration of Independence, all of those find their origins in the Mayflower Compact, which was a heavily Christian document, which provided for the liberty of other people to practice their religion here in the United States in a way that they saw fit.
Right.
And that has
And
now subsequently been used against us.
Mhm.
So I get, I, I
and
not
I
in a
think
cheeky way, but I love it when people bring that up the way you just did, because it opens the door for me to kind of get on my soapbox and preach a little bit.
well, and again, I
You
think it
cannot govern. You cannot govern, if you want to use that terminology. You cannot govern this country without your religious, socio, cultural, political views, or without your social,
biases.
cultural, and political views being influenced by religion.
No,
Period.
it's
Or your
impossible. I
lack of
mean,
religion. You
it's
can't. It's
I think
impossible.
it's kind of like an innate bias that we're going to have. We are
Yeah, it
going to
has to.
yeah. I don't think there's any way to separate it. Uh, and I look a lot of when we start talking about these different religions and so forth. Being a libertarian, I mean, I put the same rule as anything else. How you live your life, how you want to live it, as long as you're not interfering with my ability to do the same or somebody else's ability to do the same.
Okay, so
Uh,
let's talk about that for a minute. So let's
okay.
say this opportunity arises and Minnesota comes along and says, "Hey, we've got enough of a swing here. We've flipped the state red." And I look, a libertarian's purple. I don't know.
Gold.
Huh?
Be bold, vote gold.
Yeah, there you
Gold.
go. So let's say we flip Minnesota red. The
Yep.
idea of conservative. We flip Minnesota red, and you have a friend like uh, Jake, your friend
Mhm.
Jake.
Yep.
He gets elected. He's got to decide which direction he's going to lean on some of these issues.
Right.
And the bill comes down the line, and we're going to start removing sexually explicit materials from our schools. We're going to pass a bill like Florida just did,
Mhm.
and we're going to start removing these sexually explicit materials from schools. Republicans are going to do that for the most part, you know, in Christian culture, if we will. They're going to do that on religious grounds. How's a libertarian going to vote on that?
Here's my counter question to you. Why is
No,
the
you
state,
don't get to counter my question with the question.
Why is the state having any option at all instead of local school boards?
Well, I don't disagree, but the reason a state like Florida has had to step in is because the local school boards aren't doing their job.
Yeah.
And I can
mean,
point people to dozens of videos that I have had out in the last year where school boards are following the direction of the superintendents and the Minnesota School Board Association, and instead of doing the will of the people. So that's
Right.
one of the reasons why a state like Florida has had to step in.
now
So-
I think, go ahead.
So unless you can get all paleo conservatives and libertarians on school boards, good luck with that.
Yeah.
How is a libertarian going to approach that issue? Are you
A
going to say no?
libertarian-
We can't tell schools what they can and can't teach.
I mean, the libertarian point on this would be why is the state educating your kids rather than you are?
I agree 100%.
Okay, that would probably be there is, hey, you know what? It's your job to teach values to your kids, not the state's. It's your job to make sure they know that's not appropriate. Because again, we have a bad habit of passing the responsibility of raising our kids off to others.
I 100% with
okay.
you.
And
100%
that's-
with you. But you just, so let's go with this, Bull. You just said, look, I don't want weed just decriminalized. I want people to legally be able to do it.
Mhm.
And if that means we have to tax it, then I'll agree to that. So we're in this position right now where school boards aren't doing their jobs and the parents are out there, some of them being threatened with arrest. Some of them have been trespassed and threatened with arrest if they come back to a school board meeting. We've got school districts, if I remember correctly, Rochester Public School District has dropped their mask mandates except for school board meetings. And why are they doing that? Because they know that the vast majority of parents are going to come in here and push against critical theory, whether it be critical race theory, critical gender theory, critical sexual theory, are not going to want to wear masks. So they can use that as a way to keep the parents out. So how's a libertarian going to respond to that? And I love the fact that you're able to have this conversation without like throwing something at the screen.
Oh yeah. Well,
How's a libertarian who said, look, I want weed legalized, and if I have to pay taxes on it, I'll do that for now. Isn't there a place for compromise on that and say, look, we do have a Department of Education. We do have an education, for lack of better terminology, a Department of Education in the state of Minnesota. So if the school boards aren't going to do their jobs and watch out for the will of the people, then at some level, since we do have these departments, we can dictate what they can and cannot do.
Well,
is that acceptable?
No. And this is why. What happens when the entire state is a dark blue and they say the school should be teaching Muslim teachings, or they should be teaching? I mean, if we don't want them to have the authority to do that, we can't give them the authority to do something else. I mean, when we give them that authority, we are basically losing control of what happens. And that's my fear. And I've had this conversation with the biggest hot button issue, abortion. Because again, I'm running on the federal level, and my view on it is the Constitution doesn't give it to the federal government, so the federal government should have nothing to say about it.
So, well, okay, I agree. It shouldn't. But should the state have anything to do with it either?
Well, again, that's one of the benefits for me for running for federal office.
You don't have to answer that
question. I don't have to answer that.
Brian, you saw him dodge that, right? Brian, you saw him. He just dodged that. He just dodged that. Not very well, because I saw that coming.
Yeah.
He just dodged that. But
you know what? And my argument on that is when we're talking about abortion is I am very much.
It says, "Yep, he did."
I mean, I'm very much pro-life, but the fact is, the government has never successfully banned anything.
Oh, I agree.
If we want to end abortion, we need to target the causes that people feel that they have to go that way. And you know, this is a subject that I am constantly evolving on, because one of the principles, and you may know this, of being a libertarian is the non-aggression principle. You
Correct.
cannot be, I mean, you should never use aggression on another to get what you want. And this is me speaking as an individual, as a person, not representing any party, creed, or anything like that. I have my questions of when does that principle get applied to an unborn child? I mean, that's because to me, I think that the NAP should cover a fetus, but at what point? I mean, I had and to highlight this even more, as I did last year, I was in Lind, and we had a event that I spoke on, and the abortion subject came up. And I'm in a room.
Were you at Larvita's place?
Yep. And I have a room full of conservatives here, and I asked them, if you had the power to ban abortion, who here would ban it at all, no matter what? And you had a few people raise their hands. Okay, who would ban it except in case of rape or incest? A few more. Who would ban it at a heartbeat? A few more. Who would ban it at 20 weeks when they have mental capability? A couple more. And there was a couple who said it shouldn't be banned at all. And I looked at them and say, here I am in a room full of conservatives. Y'all can't even come up with a date of when it should be banned. How do you expect a government to? I mean, y'all all agree with this, but y'all can't even come up with a time period or a date. And it really made a lot of people think at that point, because I mean, they were all saying we need a constitutional.
But here's the problem, and I know what your answer is going to be with this. I'm going to preface this to address the abortion issue.
Yeah.
Is everything the Supreme Court decides constitutional?
No.
Okay. Does the Constitution promise a woman the right to abort her unborn child?
Nope.
Right. Is it murder?
I think it is.
Okay. So if it's murder, do we already have laws in place to prevent that?
Not federal laws.
Do we need federal laws? Do we need
state laws?
We have state laws to prevent that.
I mean,
correct?
It's the same reason the federal government could not outlaw slavery. They did not have the authority.
Right. But as a independent independent running on libertarian, I combined a few words there.
Right.
As an independent running on libertarian values.
Uh-huh.
You do have to govern, and I don't like that word, because you're not the government, you're a representative of the true government, but you have to govern on the will of the people at a certain point.
Yep.
And there does come a place where, and I think this is one of the few places where, you know, even traditional conservatives and libertarians disagree, where somebody's got to step in and say, enough of this crap.
Mm-hmm.
We have to stop murdering our children, and there need to be penalties for it. And as we know, is that when the principle of law, for the most part, is nobody can pass a law that supersedes a federal law or a state law. So like a county can't pass a law that loosens the restrictions of a state law.
We do all the time. They're called Second Amendment sanctuaries.
Ostensibly. So if the state says we're going to pass a speed limit of, which I don't even know why we're regulating speeds on the interstates either, or on the highways, but nobody's dealing with abortion except for Oklahoma right now.
Yeah.
And there are other states that are starting to, but Oklahoma at the state level, because there again, states have authority over the federal government. Oklahoma's saying, oh, guess what? No abortion at all. When a libertarian delegate looks at you at that federal level and says, how are you going to handle this when the feds tried to step in? What's your response going to be?
My response is going to be to do everything I can to prevent the federal government from getting involved. It's not our job.
Right.
It's not, we don't have the constitutional authority. First and foremost is I am a constitutionalist. That is my North Star, is that piece of paper. And so, I mean, that's where and it's a two-edged sword. Just like I'm going to say the government cannot step in there and say no, the government also cannot go in there and say yes. I don't want the federal government to have that much power to make a choice one way or the other. I'd rather fight it on the local and state levels.
Which is why it ended up going to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and which I disagree with the Supreme Court. I think, and I do think that Roe versus Wade has a pretty good chance of being overturned. Granted, it will probably be a very narrow overturning, not just overturning the whole.
Not with
thing.
this new one on there.
Yeah, well, not with Oklahoma.
She can't even define what a woman is.
You know what?
How is she going to define what a baby is?
And I wrote a post on that. You know what? And she was a candidate I initially supported because I think I think somebody on the Supreme Court should come from a defense attorney's point of view. They're most likely to have seen the abuses of power. So just on that, I was willing to give her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, boy, I bet you bought that one back real fast, didn't you?
Well, there's two things that she did that really, really annoyed me. First of all, was of course that one. I mean, I had a big issue with that one because it's like, okay, so when somebody I'm in the Army, somebody was taking a PT test. Do I need a biologist here to say if they should take have the male or female scoring standards? No.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, are we not teaching what a boy and a girl is in school anymore? Because the teacher's not a biologist.
Well, we're not because nobody wants to write those laws.
And the other thing is when she said she had no opinion on natural rights. No, she had no position on that. That upset me because the whole Constitution is based off of natural rights. The Declaration of Independence basically states that no, when our natural rights aren't recognized, we revolt. And any people after this has that same situation, that is their duty to revolt on it. So I
don't care if you're Rutherfordian, Rutherfordian in your philosophy, of course, and those of you who aren't aware, Samuel Rutherford was the Scottish theologian who wrote Lex Rex, which is the law is king, which was a phenomenally radical position for someone in the British Isles to take, because for centuries the king was law.
Yeah. And
Rutherford stepped in and said, no, the law is king over even the king. Mm-hmm. And John Locke took Rutherford. So you have Rutherfordian philosophy with a very strong Christian basis.
Right.
You have Locke step in and take what Rutherford wrote. And now Locke writes this from a predominantly, and I wouldn't say atheist, because Locke wouldn't have called himself an atheist, but definitely a less stringent Christian perspective, and probably more of a deistic perspective, but very, very purely philosophical perspective. And he steps in with these things and says natural law. Between Rutherford and Locke, we end up with a very strong, very established argument for what natural law is. And that's what gave rise to the American mindset. And that's what Tocqueville really captured was the philosophies there.
I've had some great debates on this. I don't know if you know Merle Hexham or not.
Yeah, I know Merle.
Yeah, me and Merle would, on some of these subjects, we would go to town at each other on these things.
You'll have to color me surprised.
And I love Merle. I mean, I love Merle. He's a great guy. But he's also one of these I don't compromise for anybody type of deals, which, you know what, that we need some of those. We need those to keep everybody else honest. And I'll be the first one to say, hey, you know what? I don't have all the answers. I don't pretend to. which is why I listen to everybody. I'll talk to anybody because somebody may come up with an idea or a thought that I hadn't considered.
Right.
Which is, I think, part of our problems with our representatives now is they think they have all the answers, or if they don't, their lobbyist does.
Well, I don't see. I don't even think that they even think they have the answers. I think that's exactly. I think they precisely don't believe they have all the answers. But I think it's because they come to the point where they've been so conditioned to not have an answer
Mhm.
that their answer is, "Well, I'm just doing the will of the people."
They stop looking.
And it's exactly the case. It's not the will of the people. It's really the will of whatever lobbyist happens to have had their ear at the most recent,
Yeah.
Meeting. And the problem that we have is, well, have you read the Coddling of the American Mind?
I have not, and this is one of the things I hope people understand about me is I am not a scholar of all these philosophies. I have a sense of what's right and wrong and what I believe on the plain wording of the Constitution, but I am not a scholar by any stretch of the means.
Let me translate that for my all three viewers. What Bull is saying is he has a real life and he's not a nerd like TC.
Actually, I was thinking most of the Mises caucuses, but
oh, touche.
Which I love them. I mean, the doctrine works great out here. But one thing I'm starting to learn is people want the baby, they don't want the labor pains. And when you
but that ties into the question I asked, which is the coddling of the American mind. We have right, left, and center. We've all been conditioned to have things as easy as possible. So if I want change, I want it now, but I don't want to have to go through the struggle of it. And in the biggest problem is the softness of America. I mean, we can't even survive without a freaking microwave right now. I mean, like, your microwave breaks down, and I guarantee you somebody in your house, unless you're the only one there, and at some point you'll have the argument with yourself. If your microwave breaks down, you'll be like, what am I going to do? I got to have a microwave. How am I supposed to reheat my leftovers without a microwave? Never mind all those years up until about the mid 80s where nobody had a freaking microwave.
Yep.
And that's how soft we've become.
Mm-hmm.
And that has bled into how we handle everything. We're always looking for somebody else to fix our problems.
Right.
And so we look to the elected officials. I hate that term, but we look to the elected officials, fix this for us. And then the elected officials look to the lobbyists, and lobbyists look to the crony capitalism within corporate America. Fix this for us. Fix it, fix it, fix it. And that's how we've ended up in this place where we are right now, where we can't fix anything unless we spend billions of dollars on it. And the place where that hones in for me is how we're treating veterans.
Mm-hmm.
But what? We've got a president talking about there. I've already brought it up. The sacred duty of this nation is to take care of the veterans, and talking about how we're going to make sure they have jobs. Like, no, do not make sure they have jobs, because you'll kill them.
Yep.
That's what'll happen. You'll put them in a labor camp.
And the thing is, veterans don't want us. We don't want them to give us jobs. We want them to give us the opportunity to earn it ourselves. We want them to get out of the way
and take care of the damage that you caused by putting us in harm's way.
Well, and that's been a big whole thing with me to begin with, is they have to realize that when you send a soldier to war, your expenses don't stop when the war stops. I mean, soldiers aren't like you can a tank where you can replace a broken part and send it back and it's brand new. I mean, the damage that happens to these soldiers, it's now the responsibility of the country. I mean, that national defense is one of those few things that the Constitution does levy for does assign to the national government, and with that comes the taking care of those soldiers once their time is done. I mean, we talked earlier. I mean, there's 22 a day. That's how many brothers and sisters we lose every day, and we have for the last 20 years. And a lot of this is due to mental health. And as a whole, libertarians, we hate spending money. I mean, we absolutely, positively hate spending money. But one of my proposals on that is when a soldier leaves active duty, like I'm retired. So when I retire, I get TRICARE for life. I mean, it's basically my insurance.
But you've earned that.
Well, and that's where I'm going. But what I want to happen is every time a soldier just gets out, they get the equivalent of TRICARE for life for mental health that they can use through a private, or they can go through the VA or whatever. But, and how do we pay for it? You know what? Those Social Security taxes that they come out of their check when you're active duty, that's where that money needs to go. I mean, take that Medicare money and push it towards paying for the mental health care. And I really think that's thinking outside the box. That's something different that we haven't tried before. But we can't keep doing the same stuff over and over again, expecting different results.
So let's talk about this, because I'm going to tread around this because I don't want the video taken down. But I want to talk about it, but I want to talk about it in a way that's helpful without like us losing the entire stream.
Yeah. Why does some say ruh-roh, Shaggy?
Yeah. How close do you think we are to seeing troops committed to yet another immoral war right now? And I think you know the situation I'm talking about.
I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't think. After 20 years of war in Afghanistan and Iraq, I don't believe we have the stomach for it. I'm
not asking. So I'm asking you as a potential member of the House of Representatives. I'm not asking you as strictly as a private American citizen in the stomach of the Americans, because if it was strictly up to whether or not the American people had a stomach for it, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing right now.
Well, and again, it wouldn't sit with me anyway, because that would be up to the Senate. But if I was sitting in the Senate, I would be a resounding no. I've made a post on this. Unfortunately, yeah, I feel sorry for them. I mean, I hate they're going through this.
Yep.
At the end of the day, it's a European problem. It's up to the European.
But what happens in Europe affects us. Well,
it does eventually, but we can't. Everything in the world ends up affecting us.
If it was up to people like you, we'd all be speaking German and Japanese right now.
You know what?
I know you've heard that.
Oh yeah, I have. And truth of the matter is, the Japanese said they would never have tried to take mainland America because there's a gun on every corner. And you know what? That leads me. I mean, Mark Lindquist was the Democrat I was running against, and he decided he felt better about going over there and volunteering to fight for there, or if they didn't accept him to fight, doing humanitarian aid. As an individual, I completely support Mark's decision to do that, but not as a country. And you know what? He is doing some great work there. They're taking care of a lot of kids. They made sure a lot of kids enjoyed Easter this past week who would not have done so otherwise. But I mean, that's kind of an individual decision that he made. But one of the things he told me that really struck home to me is Ukrainian, because Ukraine, they don't have anything like the Second Amendment. You have to have a permit to have a hunting rifle, hunting gun, stuff like that. The comment his interpreter told Mark was, if we would have had America's Second Amendment, the Russians would not have taken 1 inch of Ukrainian soil. And that, to me, that really struck home.
He might come back not a Democrat.
Well, you know what? And he's already switched to independent. He switched to independent before he dropped out of the race, simply because they told him if he was elected, they expected him to do 4 hours a day fundraising for the DNC. And he's like, how am I supposed to take care of my constituents? That's not that's not our issue. If we help you, you get elected, this is what we expect in return. And he's pretty much like, I'm done. I can't live with those rules.
Gosh, I wish more people had that level of principle.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? I mean, I love Mark, and you know what? I was really thankful that to get his endorsement when he dropped out, which I mean meant a lot because I mean, me and Mark, I mean, he was the Air Force. He's an Air Force vet.
Oh
and,
no.
Well, and you know, we're going to go into this is when I saw him running, he was running under I'm the veteran in the race, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, I've been in here for 6 freaking months. I'm a veteran with the
20 years.
20
years.
Up. Yep.
Well, you were finance, which is like the Army's version of the Air Force.
Yeah, pretty much. But and I called him up, said, dude, I just have a question. How are we gonna run this campaign? He's like, what do you mean? I mean, are we gonna get along or are we gonna be assholes about it? And he laughs, said, dude, we're both vets, we can handle this. And we developed a great rapport. I mean, we sat down for lunch a few times, and there's some things we agree with and a lot of things we don't. Like, he thought the national deficit was just a number. I'm like, no.
Well, it is just a number, an insurmountable, stupid number that's going to kill our nation. But that's all right.
Exactly. But it was one of those things. We had plans for campaigning with each other and against each other, doing debates at all these different county fairs against each other, going, this is my view, this is his view, this is your options. Because we both know that Michelle Fischbach would never have debated either one of us. But it was our way of being able to go out there and say, you know what, we can have different political worldviews. It doesn't mean we hate each other. We could be competing against each other without hating each other's guts, thinking the other guy's evil. We just have different views on the best way to serve our country. I mean, right. but we're both good people. And you know what? When I talked to him, one of the things he told me that really set me back is he said, you know what? When I decided to go to Ukraine, the fact that you were running for Congress had a lot to do with that. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, I didn't feel a need for me to have to stay in the race and run because you were running. Because I have faith that
if it had been just Fischbach, he would have stayed.
He would have very seriously considered staying. And you know, I mean, I was honored to hear him say that but as we said, I mean, when he had his farewell, like he did it at VFW in Moorhead. I went down there for his farewell, and you know what? He walked me around to all of his family and supporters, introduced me as the person they needed to vote for. And this is a guy who was running as a Democrat, and as a Libertarian, I mean, a constitutional conservative, we were pretty. There were some things we agreed on, but there were some things we were pretty far apart on. But he told me, I trust him to do the right thing. And I think that's what a lot of what we've lost in today's political environment. And you know what? Probably the reason we've lost it is because there are so many people who put the party over the people. I mean, that the party is a higher loyalty to them than the country is.
100%.
And that's pretty much one of the reasons I felt I had to run is. And you know, I mean, you can ask me 100 times why I decided to run. I'll probably give you 100 different answers, and every damn one of them will be true.
You should probably get that down into like just one talking point there, Bull.
I know. I probably should. There's a lot of things I should.
Quick question time. Very succinct answer. What is the role of the federal state?
To defend the country. I mean, to defend country and oversee the court systems.
Okay,
that's it.
All right.
In my mind, I mean, that's what the Constitution has basically tasked the federal government with. Well, I guess they've also tasked them with mail.
Tasked them with what? I didn't catch that part.
With mail.
Mail.
They are responsible for postal roads and mail. That's in the Constitution.
And I think we could probably do away with the UPS. Well, USPS too. Have you tried to ship anything lately? Anyway,
Yeah, actually, we have our brand new raised cattle, not taxes shirts that are for sale that we do happen to ship out on a regular basis. Please visit us at bulljohnsonforcongress.us.
hey, it's in there.
Contribute, and it will bring you to our store.
I know. I'm like this right here. I just want people to understand this right here. If I can get it right, the only thing I hate about StreamYard is it's different. It goes the opposite direction. This shirt right here, right here, $5 to mail that in the state of Minnesota.
Oh, I know. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean,
and that's with the discount.
Yeah. See, and I haven't been doing enough to actually worry about trying to figure out the discounts.
Would you be willing to say right now that if you ever find yourself voting for something that you find out later on completely violates the Constitution, would you be willing not only to own that publicly, but consider? This is a really hard question because it's going to put you on the spot. So I just want you to be aware.
Nothing's been hard yet on it.
If you,
Say nothing's been said. It's been hard on it yet. So
you end up voting for something, and then you find out that, contrary to your normal standard view on things, you end up violating your conscience on a constitutional issue. Would you resign?
I don't know if I would resign.
Okay.
I would have to really seriously have a soul-searching moment and figure out how I made that mistake. Is it because I had bad information at the time? Or is it something where if it comes down to my moral compass was off, then yeah, I mean, I would have to very seriously consider resigning. I mean, the Constitution is something very important to me. And
that's why I asked the question.
If I
asked
knowingly,
every single person.
Yeah. If I knowingly violated it, then yeah, I think I would have to resign. I mean, if it was something where I may have
so much about your character.
The thing is, I don't want to be there in the first place.
Well, which is precisely why you should be the one there.
I feel like I have to be there because, I mean, we got to fix this. We got to right this ship. If not me, who? If not now, when?
Constitutionalism is like a virus. It takes one person to catch it and spread it to the people around them.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I've already signed the term limit pledge. Okay, I mean, if they want to keep me there for 3 terms, that's fine. That's it. After that, if they want to replace Tina Smith or the other with me, I would do 1 term in the Senate.
The other,
yeah.
I like it. Or the other.
Well, that's a brain fart. I couldn't remember who else.
Name.
Commissar, there we go. So if they wanted to replace one of those 2 with me, I would do it for 1 term, and then I retired to come into my farm. That's why when I came here, it was to the purpose of going to my farm, retiring there, and living out my retirement, taking care of the animals.
I love that you picked farming as your retirement occupation. So you literally retired to a job where you get no time off.
You know what, though? You'd be surprised at the number of my former soldiers or friends who were in the military who came back and tell me you were living my dream.
It's because you want to get away from people and not have to answer to anyone else.
Exactly. And when you're farming, you have to answer to Mother Nature and the gods and God. That's about it. I mean,
Brian wants to know if you're, you know what, Brian, I'm such a softie. I keep putting people's questions up.
Yes, I am saying I will not do more than 3 terms in the House and 1 in the Senate. I thought I made that clear.
Oh,
but you know what? I'll play politics for a second, and I will give an out to that, and I will say,
here we go. He's already compromising.
I will say I will not run for office again. if people felt strongly enough they wanted me there to write me in, but I would definitely not be asking for that.
Do you hear that, Brian? He already compromised on his own term limit.
I did not. I said I would not run again.
I don't know. It sounds like an equivocation. No, hey, I appreciate your approach to what it means to serve at that federal level, and that I know you're going to walk into this. I can flat out say I'm throwing my endorsement to you because no one's going to care. See, look at, he says he's not even elected and it's already happening.
I did that just for you, Brian.
This is what happens when you let a finance guy speak for too long.
Wait till you see me with numbers.
Oh, you're probably much better with numbers than I am.
Well, I'm much better than the government is.
Okay, my dog is better with finance numbers than government is. I really do wish for you to win this, because I did not know that Fishbach voted the way that she did on the veterans issues, and that alone is enough for me to say we need to get her out of there. If there's anything I can do for you going forward between now and the general election, if there's, you need to sit down and talk. If you could finagle coming on my show with Michelle, I will make that happen.
Oh, I would
if you
do it in a
finagle
heartbeat.
Michelle to just come on here.
I can't even get her to talk to me. You think she wants to answer questions in public for me?
Hey, I'm not public. I have tens and tens of viewers.
Which is tens and tens of more than I have.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
let's face it. I mean, our chances. Go ahead.
No, you.
Our chances here are uphill. I mean, I do think we've got a relatively decent chance, because I mean, Michelle she's not very popular. People are feeling like they're not being represented. Her team has basically alienated the grassroots conservatives in this district.
Well, it's all the state. That's the entire state of Minnesota. So,
yeah. Well, her, and then, I mean, they had Reddit to Ralph yesterday, which was a Republican event up in northwestern Minnesota, that she didn't go to because she was out doing western state stuff. But the northern part of the district for certain feels abandoned by her. They don't see her. She doesn't do town halls. Last year when they had an event and she was asked a question on, this is 2 months after she was elected, when are you going to open an office in the northern part of the district? Her response was, well, we've only been in office 2 months. We're still trying to figure all that out. And we all looked at each other.
She still doesn't have an office up there.
Well, no, because she already spent her money. She already knew that. She spent her money on her staff and her offices from day one. And she knew that. I mean, she gets $1.2 million to spend on her offices. And you can bet that, I mean, it was all, I mean, from the date she took office, she knew exactly which offices she was running where, what staff, what campaign members she was rewarding with staff positions. But yeah, so up here, it's just we don't, I mean, I get, and this is probably going to burn a few friends, and I hate to do it to them, but I get more welcoming messages and feelings from the GOP leadership on the county level in northern Minnesota than probably from anybody else. I mean, I have them asking when I need my signatures. What does that tell you?
Good. She needs to be made uncomfortable, and
I mean,
there's a faction in Minnesota that will burn every single person in the Republican Party and call them all rhinos, and there's a part of me that wants to do that too, because I'm really fed up. I've been burned by the Republicans enough. But here's
the problem: the rhinos aren't rhinos anymore.
They're dead.
The rhinos are the Republican Party. The rhinos are the liberty-loving conservatives, because they're the ones not doing the.
I won't. I get your point, but I still I don't even like, people refer to people as neocons and normies. I coined the phrase normie con. And when you look at when people like, Walter Hudson, who is running for
Yep.
Congressional District 30, I think it's 30A, he's a traditional, constitutionally minded. I don't know if you know Walt, but
I haven't met him, but I've heard the name and I've seen some of his stuff.
he is phenomenal. And we've got Stephen Lowell, who I had on last Friday, who is running up there in the Edina area for Senate.
Yep.
And he's phenomenal. And
we've got some great ones.
We've
The question
got
is,
some great ones. Yeah.
is the establishment going to let them?
And that's the thing, is that between guys like you running as an independent or the libertarians out there, we can take a stab at in the metaphorical in the Minecraft way. We could take a stab at this and really have an impact. And maybe for some of the people, it might literally just be moving them away from the compromising middle to more of the traditional conservative, constitutionally minded values, because they're going to start seeing, like, if I don't start doing what these people want, I'm not going to have this position any longer. And that might be all it takes.
Can you see the soul searching of the GOP if I beat Fishbach and the Republicans lose a district that they're R plus 20?
Oh,
okay. I mean,
I think it would be more than soul searching. I really do. And because at the grassroots level, we're looking at a for lack of better terminology, we're looking at a problem of disconnect. I'm hearing this. I don't know if you know this, Bull, but I'm a pretty big deal.
I know. I said I was following you before you even introduced yourself. I was watching you.
The pretty big deal comment is a ongoing joke for my channel, because I have a core group of friends on Telegram that keep going, "Hey, don't forget, we knew you win," and I'm like, I'm never going to be win.
Well, you will be. You know why? Because
we got Brian in here, and he's going to connect me to Spike.
Well, one thing I put out is all these people who are letting me on their podcast right now, who are interviewing me now, the independent media. Once I win, every major news source in the country is going to want to talk to me. They got to wait in line.
Aww.
Because the people who are here for me today, at the beginning, when they're ignoring me, payback's a bitch.
You heard it here, folks. I get first dibs in Minnesota.
Actually, you do, because you are the first one in Minnesota.
Yes. I'm a big deal. No,
because you know what? Everybody's going to want to hear, because the first questions they're going to want to know, hey, who's he caucusing with? How is he going to do that? I mean, how did he win that way? And it's going to be, you know what? You guys ignored me for a year and a half. You're going to have to wait.
Well, I use self-deprecating humor just because it's fun. I really don't. I don't expect much. Here's the thing is, like, I think it's starting to wake people up. We're seeing it over and over and over again. There's a huge disconnect between the people who are showing up for conventions and people who are showing up at BPOUs. And BPOU leadership is sweating. And, we can have a conversation about Morrison County, and we've investigated ourselves, and we found out that in our investigation we didn't do anything wrong.
Don't even get started on Clay County.
You heard me say that to Skipper the other night on the show. When anytime the military says they're investigating themselves, it's funny how the investigation always results in them not having done anything wrong. And the same thing with law enforcement.
Afghanistan withdrawal.
We won't talk about the Afghanistan withdrawal anymore. But and speaking of that, by the way, I'm probably going to be having Lieutenant Colonel Scheller on.
Well, great, because I've been waiting to hear back from them, because I've asked them for their endorsement.
Yeah.
But they're hesitant to do it against a sitting Republican.
Well, we'll see what we can pull, because he's definitely going to be on Vet Nation, and I'm going to try and pull him on for mine, because his story and my story are very, very, very similar. What was done to him was done to me. Mm-hmm. So,
and I have the utmost respect for him. He saw something and said something. I mean,
which is precisely what you do when you take an oath to the Constitution.
Yep.
But I think, to finally make my point eventually here, the party leadership is in disarray. And I know you're not a Republican, but the Republican Party leadership is in disarray. Jen Carnahan shot them in the foot with her antics this last year by saying they were going to get rid of the people like the Duesenbergs and the Mortensons and whatnot. And there again, you don't have to like Jake, you don't have to like Eric, you don't have to like Trump, but the base is looking at people who are going to start standing up and saying hard things.
Mhm.
And when you got a person like Jen Carnahan saying that we need to get these people out of the party and make the Republican Party what I want it to be, and jokingly laughs about how we don't have to worry about, referring to her now deceased husband, Jim's not going to be here for much longer. He's going to die pretty soon anyway. That kind of crap really gets people's attention, and they're going to start looking to the more libertarian-minded candidates even within the Republican Party.
Yeah.
That's going to start scaring a lot of these no good discontent type or malcontent types who aren't doing anything but towing a compromising line.
Well, and
so
you
I
know
think your
what?
chances might be a lot better than you think they are.
And there was a couple governor's candidates who made sure to have nice little conversations with me yesterday.
I bet I can name at least one of them.
Hell, possibly. I'm not going to throw him under the bus.
I've had him on my show, I bet.
Very good chance. But
that's there again. It's the same thing for you as it is for him. You care about the people.
Yep.
It's not about the big mainstream media.
Well, and the thing is, the people on the outside, the constitutional conservatives, are starting to wake up to the fact of the establishment is never going to back me.
Absolutely.
So what does it hurt if I go over here and work with Bull some? Because it's not going to change anything. It's not like they're going to all of a sudden decide to not back me when they were going to it, because that's not the case. They're starting to realize, you know what, maybe we do need to do a constitutional conservative slate to bounce off of them.
Right.
With me, it's just a little different because, again, everybody else is worrying about primaries and I'm worried about a general. But yeah,
that's nice. That's really good for you. You don't have a primary. You don't have another person. You're going to pull in a lot of the blue dog Democrat vote.
Yep.
And you're going to start pulling in a lot of the conservative, constitutionally minded Republicans up there who are really frustrated with Fishbach not representing them. I think you got a much better shot than you might think.
You know what's even scarier if they don't run a Democrat? At even the left,
it's too late. Even if they field somebody, there's just no way they're going to get traction.
Even the far left at least knows they can talk to me. They would like to see her gone regardless, because she don't talk to anybody.
Right.
It's funny because there's a guy in District 8. He was one of the Democrats running here named Joey Overgaard Peltier. He has left the Bernie and proud of it. Okay.
Wow.
But he was telling when we redistricted and we lost him, he was telling his supporters still in this district, you need to vote for Johnson. At least he's not a corporate shill. That was more his issue of the corporations are what was killing so much of America. So if this guy is not going to be a corporate shill, I'd rather.
Which is ironic considering the lefties all love the corporations right now.
Well, and a lot of them do, but I know this particular one, he is big anti-corporation, not capitalist as much as just anti-corporation, which
crony capitalism.
I understand. Crony capitalism.
I despise crony capitalism. Yeah.
Because it's killing our small businesses.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
that's what made America great, was our small businesses. The opportunity that anybody can succeed and build a life for themselves through their own efforts as a small business. Instead, we've gotten to the point where you're expected to work the corporate slog.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've kept you on for quite a while. I think we've talked about enough where people can see you're the real deal. I'm going to just share something here real quick. I just want people to understand that the bull that you get in person doesn't look like the bull in his picture. I just want everybody to see that. Just one more time. He's groomed in this picture, ladies and gentlemen. He's properly groomed.
It was a professional photo, the only one I've ever taken. But you know what? That flannel, that's probably, well, unless I'm on the floor of the house, that flannel's probably about as dressed up as I'm gonna
I would
get.
wear the flannel to the house.
Well, you have to wear a
and
tie, so I'd probably put a tie. I'd probably put a bolo tie on it. The
There you
bolo tie
go.
should work.
Hey, I really appreciate your time, and if there's anything I can do going forward, you let me know.
I will do. I appreciate y'all. Appreciate you coming here. Everybody supports my campaign. We very much appreciate it. The only way I'm going to do this is with grassroots supports, because y'all know I ain't getting the corporate money. So,
Well, and you're not gonna, you don't have a party to rely on right now.
well, yeah, exactly. I mean, but what I am going to rely on is the people I'm going to represent.
Absolutely.
Thank you much, sir.
Well, you-
Appreciate it.
Stay in touch. Let me know how it's going.
Will do.
Now
Have a
go
good
to
one.
bed, because I know you got to get up and feed the animals.
Early in the morning. It's a busy day tomorrow. We're shooting some commercials tomorrow. So,
Oh, that's right. You got a buddy helping you with that.
yep.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you go, and I'm gonna say my goodbye and do my little pitch again, and then we'll get everybody out of here.
All right. Have a good one, man. Thanks.
Thank you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Travis Bull Johnson. He is very libertarian minded, running as an independent, and I think he's got a good shot at taking on Michelle. And quite honestly, from what I've been hearing about Michelle now, especially since talking to Bull, she does need to go. If she's going to ignore her constituency, she shouldn't be there. And we need a far more red-pilled libertarian types in office, because as Bull was pointing out, the Republicans don't know how to deal with the constitutionally minded people. And the best thing for them right now is to be challenged. And so I would strongly encourage you to go check out Bull's information. If you can help, if you're in his district, find out what you can do to support his campaign. And once again, remember, ladies and gentlemen, that I am doing the 22-0 challenge between now and the end of April. If you buy any coffee or merchandise from me, a portion of those proceeds will go to the 22-0 organization, and that will be matched up to $100 from Right America Media. Juan, the owner and producer of that network, and Kim and his wife from Second Generation Creations are going to match it as well. So we could possibly have $300 or more between now and the end of April go to 22-0. That could buy a plane ticket for a vet who's experiencing suicidal ideation and needs to be on a ranch somewhere where he can get the help. Could mean groceries for a single vet who's got a family to take care of, or help pay a rent, payment or something like that, which is far more than our illustrious president of the United States is doing when he can tweet out stupid things but not back it up. If you're interested in the merchandise, if you're interested in the coffee, you can find me on Facebook, TC Pearson. You can find me on Twitter at Black Robe Regiment. You can find me an email, tcpearson@protonmail.com. Shipping is pretty much same day. Once I receive payment, it goes out. And the coffee is phenomenal. And it's made by a vet for a vet. And it's going to benefit vets. So I cannot encourage you enough to throw some business my way. I really appreciate it. If you like what you saw here in this conversation, reach out to Bull and share this around. I really want people to hear what Bull has to say. And it's not just good for Minnesota. It's not just good for the 7th District of Minnesota. Good, constitutionally minded elected servants are good for the entire country. So until next time, sic semper tyrannis.
We are go for liftoff in T-30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark. authorized to fire at